Good morning all. Today something a little bit more simple, or I could have said a little bit simpler. So I've got two LED light strip bars sort of things, both USB, and in fact you can see I've plugged both of them. I wanted to keep everything white today. Look at this, it's all white. So I thought I'd run them from the QD188 power bank, which is saying 12 volts, but that's on the multi-voltage output. Let me just switch it back to output 1, 5.29 volts there. So this one only has one color, but it does have a touch on-off switch. Touch on-off. And you can see, although the white area is just white, you can see the halo is a nice warm white. Touch off, touch on, touch off. I tried locking the exposure on this and it didn't really help, so I'm not going to bother. This one is quite interesting because it comes with this switch. So the wire on this one is integral, whereas the wire on this one is on a USB mini B. Oops. Yeah, this one has two switches. You can either have cool white, that's cool white, or you can have warm white. Once again, you can only tell really from the halo on this, or you can mix the two. You can have cool and warm white, and I assume they're separate LEDs. Well, they have to be really, don't they? And so you'll get more light, I suppose, if you put them both on. Yeah, I think it does produce more light. But yeah, cool, warm, or cool, or both, or neither. So let's start with the USB mini B light bar with the touch switch, which is quite sensitive. Let's see if I can get this apart. Now I'm going to try and do this with the power on most of the time if I can, so I can switch it on and off. Okay, so that comes out of the end. This, oh yeah, that comes off relatively easily. So what have we got? Well, we've got the touch switch there, which is a little spring. And under here, stuck on the underside of this plastic top, is a little bit of self-adhesive copper strip and some solder, but I don't think the solder's meant to solder to the spring. I think it's just meant to touch it. I don't know quite why the solder's there. So this must be a little touch sensor board. That's then very interestingly soldered down onto the main board in such a way that it's extraordinarily close to the aluminium extrusion. Very close. In fact, let's get really close up on that. Yeah, that's very close. It's potentially even touching it one side, the other side probably not. Now I know aluminium develops an oxide layer, so maybe that's what's preventing it shorting, but that's a bit weird, isn't it, to put it that close to the metal housing. So will this come out of its extrusion? Not by pulling that, it won't. What about pulling this end cap off? Well, you can pull the end cap off, but that doesn't seem to have released it. There are two mounting things here which, yeah, they'll slide off. So let's take those off. But that's not sliding out. Now I can see there's a little blob of something there. Let's see that in close up. Yes, it's right there. So I think they may have dabbed a little bit of UV glue on there, or ordinary glue maybe. So I think I just need to poke at that with a knife to try and loosen it, and then this should slide out. Well, it's resisting. I'm going to try and lever it across with this screwdriver, but oh, actually, yeah, that seems to be moving. Is it going to slide out? Yep, out it comes. Now there's not, the reason for doing that was not really to see on the back of there, because there's nothing to see other than we can see a nice track pattern there, parallel tracks for power, and then each LED has its own resistor, so they're very clearly in parallel. What I wanted to see was the underside of this board. Now there's a thing called a TP226, is it? So that might be one of those touch switch chip. Let's get in close. Yeah, I've got a feeling this is the TP223 variant because it says 223B on there. So that's a single touch switch, and of course we've just got one touch point. Oh, I was going to leave the power connected, wasn't I? Let's do that. Put the power back on. Ooh, that's not enjoying that. Oh, maybe that's switched off. Yes, there we are. So, yeah, the touch switch still works fine. And then there's a thing here called a 2SHB, or maybe even an A2SHB. Is that a MOSFET? I'm just going to look that one up. Yes, it looks like that's an N-channel MOSFET with a very low gate voltage. 2.5 volts is the threshold gate voltage on that. Oh, the power bank's turned off again. Let me bring this back up so that you can see everything. Here's the power bank. That keeps turning off because, of course, there's no power being consumed when this is off, and that thinks, oh, well, I'll just switch off then. So, yeah, that's MOSFET-driven, these LEDs, all warm white, resistor each, all in parallel. So that's pretty straightforward. Let's take a look at the other one. This one, I can't seem to work the end caps off at either end. They seem to be glued. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe that plastic cover will come off. Yeah, but it's not going to come off if I can't get the end caps off. Yes, that was glued on, but with a little bit of persuasion it came off. So now let's try and remove this top piece. Yes, it does seem to be put around the extrusion, but that should come off. And we should be able to see what's inside. Why won't that come off there? Oh, it's got quite a... Oh, yes. Look at that. Is that going to come out? Yeah, it does come out. So, I mean, this is, oh, well, a more densely populated version of this. Let's turn that off. A lot more LEDs. Oh, side on as well. And, of course, we've got the warm white and cool white alternated. However, they only seem to have one resistor each. I suppose it doesn't really matter if when you turn on one set and when you turn on the other set, of course it's using that one resistor. When you turn on both, it's probably sharing that resistor, and that may mean that, oh, now what would happen? Would the brightness go down? I think the brightness would go down. But of course, since you've got more brightness because you've got more total LEDs, you're probably not going to notice that too much. And in fact, it's quite a clever way of regulating it. I just can't see whether the brightness of one goes down when you switch the other on. It quite possibly does. Yeah, so that's quite a neat use of just one resistor per pair of LEDs. Now if we get close in up here, we can see that there are 3 wires coming in. Ah, what's that say on the board? Positive, negative, and negative, is it? Let's get in close. My eyes are totally dazzled by the bright lights. I can't see anything. Or is it positive, positive, and negative? I can't even see it because I'm too dazzled. So I've been waggling this end cap, and it does seem to have come adrift. And yeah, that's pulling out. So let's see what's on the other side of that. Ah, that one's actually an aluminium printed circuit board. So the substrate is aluminium, and then there's an insulating layer, and then there's copper laid down for the tracks. Whereas this one is fiberglass FR4 by the look of it. So yeah, they're different. This one, of course, isn't going to be as good at transferring the heat. This one should be better because it can transfer the heat out through the edges of the aluminium into this piece of extrusion. So I suppose the only other thing really to look at is what's inside this switch. Should be simplicity itself, but let's have a quick look. Now, I just noticed on this one, at one end it's got the 3 pads. At the other end it's got some sort of 4-pin connector. Kind of looks like USB. Let's manually focus this using a magnifying glass. But I don't know whether you can see, possibly not from the tracks because they're not very visible, but from the 2 negatives, one appears to be on the larger power connector at the end, and one of them appears to be on one of the middle pins. So if it is USB, it's being used in a rather bespoke manner for the 2 different color LED groups. So that's a bit odd. The camera locked up. It does that every now and again, and I just have to reboot the phone, do a power off and power on. I was just looking at this extrusion while the camera was rebooting, and it got a bit bent in the post. I suppose I could bend that straight again. Actually, I quite like that bend. Yeah, I quite like that. I think I'll leave that like that. So I was undoing this. 4 screws. That's very extravagant to have 4 screws in here. Let's take them out. Oh, I think it's fairly obvious what we're going to see in here. 2 wires coming in, 3 wires going out. 2 switches, but let's just have a look anyway. Oh, okay. Oh, they're very interesting. They're kind of constructed within the body of this switch. Well, I suppose they'd have to be. But they're not sort of an off-the-shelf switch. They're a bespoke, custom-made, switchy type thing. Let's turn the power bank back on because that keeps turning itself off because it doesn't like there being no current draw. But yeah, I'm going to get in close on this. So without the magnifier, we can see that positive is routed from USB straight through by soldering positive to positive there, right in mid-air, it would seem. Yeah, just floating in mid-air. That's really weird. And then these 2, black and white, are the negative returns, which go through the 2 switches and to the negative of the USB. Press one of the switches and you either get cold white or warm white or both. I quite like that switch. It's just beautifully nasty, whatever that means. It says it's rated here for 250 volts at 1 amp. What do you think? 250 volts through that? I can quite imagine that this, I mean, there's probably an off-the-shelf switch. I can quite imagine that this is used in mains situations, but I don't know. I'm not sure about that. So, switch put back together. Oh, what have I done? It's the power bank turned itself off again. So that's good. Yeah, bear in mind, I will try and find links to these things on eBay and put those in the description. But you do have to bear in mind that anything sort of long and thin like this and pretty flimsy may well turn up bent. But yeah, I think they're a couple of quite nice lights with different features. This one having the 2 colours, or you can mix the colours. And this one having the touch on off, but it's 1 colour only. Fun lights. Cheerio.